we know that central nervous system comprises of both brain and spinal cord. Now, brain is protected within cranium and spinal cord is protected within vertebral column. Now, in the lower classes we have learned that what are the different parts of brain. The largest part of the brain is called cerebrum. The largest part of the brain is called cerebrum. Now, there is another part which is called the brainstem, which comprises midbrain. This is midbrain. Midbrain. This is pons. And this is medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata. This midbrain, pons and medulla oblongata comprises the brainstem. Brainstem. This brainstem is the smallest part of the brain. This brainstem is the smallest part of the brain, and cerebrum is the largest part of the brain. Now, what is the second largest part? There is another part which is called cerebellum. This is cerebellum. This cerebellum is the second largest part. Second largest part of the brain. Now, here it comes the spinal cord. Spinal cord. So, spinal cord is not at the part of the brain. Brain is up to this. So, what are the three regions of the brain? What are the three parts of the brain? The three parts of the brain are cerebrum. Then it comes the brainstem, which is the smallest part of the brain, and next is the cerebellum. So, cerebrum, cerebellum and brainstem. Cerebrum number 1, cerebellum number 2 and brainstem number 3 are the three part of brain. Then comes the spinal cord. Now, in the forebrain, the majority of which is comprises by the cerebrum, there is another part which is called diencephalon. So the forebrain actually comprises of cerebrum and diencephalon. So the forebrain comprises cerebrum and diencephalon. So if we classify brain in a different way, we will find that if this is cerebrum, cerebrum, if this region is called diencephalon, so this comprises forebrain. This comprises forebrain. Then below this there is a structure which is called midbrain. Midbrain. And below midbrain we will find here pons. This is medulla oblongata. And on the back side this is cerebellum. All this structure, pons, medulla oblongata, and cerebellum. All these three structures, pons, cerebellum and medulla oblongata, this forms the hindbrain. Okay. So, if we see the structure of the brain, it mainly comprises forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. The forebrain comprises of cerebrum and diencephalon. Then midbrain, I am shedding this part, midbrain, and then comes pons, medulla oblongata and cerebellum. Pons, cerebellum and medulla oblongata forms the hindbrain. Now, during the early development of the central nervous system, first neural tube is formed. Then we will see that from this neural tube, brain and spinal cord are formed. Now, how it happens? During the early development of the central nervous system, during the early development of the central nervous system, first neural tube is formed. Neural tube is formed. Now, how is that neural tube? Neural tube has 4 subdivisions. Neural tube has 4 subdivisions. During the early development of the central nervous system, neural tube is formed. Neural tube has 4 subdivisions. 1, 2, 3, and this one is 4. 4 subdivisions. Out of that, the first 3 subdivisions form the brain, and the 4th subdivision is the spinal cord. Now, these first 3 subdivisions are called the primary brain vesicles. So these are the primary brain vesicles. The first primary brain vesicle is known as prosencephalon. The first primary brain vesicle is called the prosencephalon, and this is the largest region. And this prosencephalon later developed to form the forebrain. This prosencephalon will develop later to form the forebrain. And we have already learned that forebrain comprises of cerebrum and diencephalon. Okay, so the first primary brain vesicle is called prosencephalon. The next primary brain vesicle is called mesencephalon. Now, this mesencephalon will later form the midbrain. And the last primary brain vesicle is called rhombencephalon. And this rhombencephalon will later form the hindbrain. We already know that hindbrain comprises of pons, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. Okay. Now, initially 3 primary brain vesicles are formed. Prosencephalon, mesencephalon, and rhombencephalon. 3 primary brain vesicles are formed. Now, with the development of the neural tube, these 3 primary brain vesicles gets converted to 5 secondary brain vesicles. How? Let us see. The first primary brain vesicle, that is prosencephalon, gets divided into 2 secondary brain vesicles. This is number 1, this is number 2. So the first primary brain vesicle, which is called prosencephalon, gets divided into 2 secondary brain vesicles. The first one is called telencephalon. And this telencephalon will develop further to form cerebrum. And this secondary brain vesicle is called diencephalon. Okay, so this cerebrum and diencephalon both together form the forebrain. Now, the next primary brain vesicle, that is mesencephalon, remains undivided and it develops into midbrain. So the second primary brain vesicle, which was known as mesencephalon, remains undivided and it gets developed into midbrain. Now the third primary brain vesicle, which was called rhombencephalon, it again get divided into two secondary brain vesicles. Two secondary brain vesicles. This is number 1. This is number 2. Now, the first one is known as metencephalon. Metencephalon. Now, this metencephalon will develop further into pons and cerebellum. Cerebellum. So, this metencephalon will further develop into pons and cerebellum. And the next secondary brain vesicle is known as myelencephalon. Myelencephalon. And this myelencephalon will further develop into medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata. So what we have seen, the 3 primary brain vesicles get converted into 5 secondary brain vesicles. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. The first primary brain vesicle was known as prosencephalon, which gets divided into 2 secondary brain vesicles. One is telencephalon, another one is diencephalon. This telencephalon will further develop into cerebrum, and this cerebrum and diencephalon will form the forebrain. The second primary brain vesicle, which was known as mesencephalon, it gets developed into midbrain. It gets developed into midbrain and it remains undivided. So this forms the midbrain. And the last primary brain vesicle, which was known as rhombencephalon, it gets divided into 2 secondary brain vesicles. What are those 2 secondary brain vesicles? One is metencephalon, another one is myelencephalon. And this metencephalon will further develop into pons and cerebellum. And this myelencephalon will develop into medulla oblongata. So these 2 secondary brain vesicles, metencephalon and myelencephalon, which will further develop into pons, cerebellum and medulla oblongata, comprises the hindbrain. Hindbrain. So we have already understood that how the various regions of the brain are formed, how cerebrum is formed, how diencephalon is formed and both comprises the forebrain, how midbrain is formed, and how pons, cerebellum and medulla oblongata are formed to form the hindbrain. Okay, so in this way the neural tube gets developed into central nervous system, brain and spinal cord.